So today I want to talk about handling criticism and, feedback, and, especially if it's in a public domain. So if you do a lot of stuff online, you get reviews, this type of stuff, and sometimes they're not always positive. How do you handle that? That's what it's about today. So if that's relevant to you, keep watching, keep on listening. Welcome back to consecutive day 1811, the diary of a Runpreneur. And today's episode I'm talking all about receiving criticism or negative feedback or negative review, certainly when it's kind of in a public domain. How does that affect you? How do you deal with that? But yeah, before we get into that, please don't forget that this vlog is part of a fundraiser of saving the lives of children by attempting the ultimate ultra marathon of run vlogging on consecutive days, distance of a lap of the world, barefoot style. And the more people we get in front of, more money we raise, more children's lives we save, which is why I do this every single day. Thank you as always, and let's get back to the topic at hand. So, negative kind of criticism, negative feedback, negative reviews. Certainly if you're out in the public domain and you put yourself out there for criticism, when you do receive it, it can knock you for six. And yeah, to be honest with you, I've had my share of it as well. And I like to put on this brave face and say that, oh, it doesn't bother me. The more haters you get, the more successful you're doing because you're getting in front of more people, all this type of stuff. But I'd be lying if I said that was the case. If somebody criticises me privately or publicly, it affects me. And I'm not afraid to say that because I'm just a human being like the rest of us. And I think the people who say it doesn't affect them are the ones that are just incredibly good at coping with kind of negativity or conflict or negative energy. They've got a process for dealing with it, or they're able to compartmentalise it away from affecting their kind of day to day. Maybe if I had more of it, I'd be able to do that. I don't get a lot of it, fortunately, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. But when I do, it affects me, I'm not gonna lie. So today's episode is all about kind of understanding, how you kind of process these things and how you can kind of deal with these things better. And sometimes it could be quite a ruthless or brutal attack. Sometimes it could be something of nothing, but you just kind of, it just feels like it's a negative kind of jibe towards you. And to be honest with you, I just categorize them all together. Anything negative is negative energy, it's negative aura. It kind of comes at me, and yes, it kind of takes your breath away at times. And it could be due to something you do personally, it could be due to something your business is, it could be to do with kind of anything. If it's negative and it's associated with you, I kind of compartmentalise it all in the same kind of category. So the first thing what I do when this happens is I try and say there's no such thing as negative feedback. Easier said than done, because when something comes in negative, it's very easy for us to take it to heart. But the first thing I look at is okay, let's look at what it is, and what can I learn from it? What can I do with this piece of feedback to ensure that I don't get similar feedback again in the future? And that's how I kind of look at it. And quite often there are things you can do that you can kind of learn from. There's hidden little gems of information that can ultimately make you a better person. I've had my share of this now, not to the kind of degrees that some of the big social influencers get. I wouldn't even put myself anywhere near that category with the level of followers that I have. But I get kind of things even on my philanthropic charitable work. Things sometimes they're a little bit humorous, like, I get, you run like a girl, or, I've had some kind of expletives about my running style and things as well. And these things are, when it is just kind of thoughtless kind of comments, I can pretty easily put those to the back of my mind. And I think, well, this is probably somebody who the algorithm has not worked for, and they've ended up getting my content when they probably have no interest in anything I have to say. And then they're frustrated with how the algorithms works, and they've just spurted out their feelings on one of my my videos, for example. So those people I can kind of deal with. But when there's something that's kind of said that's a little bit more maybe relevant to what you do, I like to look at it as an opportunity to grow, or an opportunity to improve. Again, it's easier said than done. Sometimes you need to obviously let that settle and come through before you can kind of pick up on what you're going to do differently. But I think having that mindset is a really good way for coping with this stuff. And if you do that, you see these kind of comments as opportunities as opposed to kind of negative comments or kind of feedback or reviews or whatever. I think that's a much better way, proactive way of dealing with it. But make sure, if there's something relevant there and there's something that you can take responsibility for, that you deal with it in the right way. I think that's also really important. It's very easy just to go, oh, it's just somebody else's opinion. But if they've felt in the world of marketing, getting engagement and comments and likes and things is hard enough. So if somebody has felt the strong enough urge to write something, to devote some of their time on one of your posts or threads or videos or whatever it is, then they've felt strongly enough to put that down. And usually that might be an emotive thing, that they're a bit angry or they're upset, or that could be one thing. Or it could be that they're generally dissatisfied with something that you or your business has done, and they felt the urge to communicate. So in those instances, you need to take stock and listen and understand. And some people you respond to if it's someone who is putting a valid point out there. If it's somebody who's just putting silly comments, you can pretty much ignore those. But if it's somebody who's putting something kind of constructive, or there is a learning outcome, I think it's always good to engage back and to say, thank you for the feedback, I'm really sorry, or whatever you've experienced, we'll be doing everything we can to put this right, or this is what we're going to learn from this and how we're going to put it right. And I think that's where customer service skills really comes to the forefront. And I think if you go into things with that mindset and you kind of rationalise and put some logic around some of the negative comments you can receive, or feedback or reviews, then I think you can deal with them a lot better. Because if you just said, oh, I'm getting all this negative kind of chatter online, it can be quite depressing. But if you actually break it down into different categories of comment and actually look at whether it is just a tongue-in-cheek, some people have nothing better to do with their lives and just put something quite offensive. If that's the case, don't give them the time of the day, just ignore that. If it's someone who has a genuine reason, then I think reaching out to them and communicating is a really good way of kind of appeasing them and actually trying to put something wrong right. But yeah, otherwise, just look at it as an opportunity. I think that's the key thing. So learnings from my diary are, if you get negative comments or feedback or reviews, it can be really, really hard to deal with as a human, because it can cause us to worry and panic and be anxious about things. But I think trying to take a step back, looking at it rationally, and kind of compartmentalising the kind of negativity, if it's just a pathetic insult with no kind of grounding, just ignore it. That doesn't worth your time and day. But if it is something there is a genuine disservice or dissatisfaction from a potential client or colleague or someone in your network, and there's something to learn from, then absolutely respond and engage and try and put it right if you can, if you have the power to do it. If you don't, I think even an apology can go a long way. And that's where, when you do that, it feels like you're proactively dealing with stuff rather than just reactively sitting there feeling awful that someone's put something negative on something that you're associated with. So anyway, not sure if that's helped or not. It certainly helped me, and it's something that when things happen in my world, I like to kind of dissect them and talk them through, because it really, really helps me kind of process them and kind of work out how's the best way to deal with things. I think that's really important. So thank you for that. But yeah, ultimately, that's it from me. So any questions, comments, anything relevant, I'll respond to. But though, if you do believe in my mission of saving the lives of children by attempting the ultimate ultra marathon of run vlogging on consecutive days, distance of a lap of the world, barefoot style, then do give this a subscribe, share, like and comment. More people we get in front of, more money we raise, more children's lives we save, which is why I do this every single day. Thank you as always. Stay positive, stay happy. I'll see you again tomorrow.